I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, standing in the middle of my own living room, staring at the shattered pieces of what I once believed was my perfect life. It all started on our anniversary night, a night I thought would be filled with laughter, maybe a little champagne, and the kind of intimacy that makes you feel like everything's right in the world. Instead, I got a front row seat to betrayal. We had just finished dinner at that fancy restaurant downtown, the one with the soft jazz playing in the background and dim lighting that makes everything feel intimate. My wife Lisa looked stunning in her red dress. She spent the afternoon fussing over her hair, touching up her lipstick, trying to look her best. I remember feeling proud like she was mine and only mine that night. We'd been married 5 years. Honestly, I thought we had it all figured out. Or so I thought. But as we sat at the table, her phone buzzed a few times and I noticed she kept glancing at it. Every time she thought I wasn't looking, she'd swipe her thumb across the screen, quick and nervous. I shrugged it off at first. Maybe it was just work stuff or a harmless message from a friend. I didn't want to make a fuss. We'd had nights like this before, no big deal. But that nagging feeling of unease started crawling under my skin. Back at home, I finally got tired of waiting for her to put her phone down. I reached for her purse on the counter just to see if she'd brush me off. She hesitated for a split second, fingers twitching like she was about to snatch it away, but I grabbed it anyway. The leather felt cool under my fingertips. I saw the slight tremor of her hand like she was fighting an internal battle. She looked at me with wide eyes and a fake smile that didn't quite reach her face. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice trembling. "Just curious," I said, holding up her purse and opening it slowly. My stomach twisted. Inside, I saw her phone nestled between a pack of gum and a stray lipstick. I could feel my palms getting clammy as I unlocked it. I'd never done anything like this before, never snooped through her stuff. But tonight, I had to know. The screen lit up with unread messages. I scrolled through quickly, my eyes darting over the words. There they were, the messages I'd been suspecting. "Can't wait to see you tonight," one read. "Don't forget our little secret," another said. My breath hitched. My heart hammered so loud I was sure she could hear it. The words weren't just flirtatious. They were intimate, raw. I saw her name pop up with a picture attached. Her with a guy I didn't recognize, their arms wrapped around each other, laughing like they were the only two people in the world. I looked up at her, my vision blurring, my chest tight. Her face was a mask of guilt, but she was trying so hard to hide it. Tears welled up in her eyes and she started crying, crocodile tears, the kind you see in movies, fake and exaggerated. "Please, I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I swear I love you." But I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I felt the sour taste of betrayal wash over me. The pain was sharp, like a knife twisting deep in my gut. I clenched my fists and looked her straight in the eyes. The betrayal was right there in her expression, in the trembling of her lips, in the quick, nervous glance at her purse. That was the moment I knew everything had changed. As she kept crying, I stood there, stunned and furious, wondering how I'd let myself trust her for so long. That night I didn't say a word. Honestly, I didn't know what to say. I just felt cold, so cold that I could barely feel my fingers. The fake tears, the trembling voice, they didn't fool me anymore. I knew the truth now, and I knew it was time to figure out what came next. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind was a mess of anger, confusion, and a sinking sense of betrayal I couldn't shake. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those tears, the innocent act she was putting on. It made me want to scream or maybe just crawl out of my skin. I kept replaying what I'd seen on her phone, her messages, the pictures, the way her voice had cracked when she begged me to believe her. It was all a lie. Every word, every fake emotion she'd thrown at me tonight. In the quiet darkness of our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling. My hands were clenched into fists, cold sweat prickling on my palms. I had no idea how to process this. I thought I knew her, I thought I knew us, but what was real? Was any of it real? The foundation of our marriage felt like it had cracked open and spilled all over the floor. I kept asking myself, why? How? I replayed every moment, her smile, her touch, the way she looked at me as if I was her everything. And then the images of her with him, my brother, flashed through my mind with sharp clarity. I saw their secret messages, the little touches they exchanged, the way she described him in her texts as if he was her escape. My brother, my own flesh and blood. I never wanted to think about him like that, let alone see it with my own eyes. I could feel my jaw tight. My stomach turned sour. I remembered the way she'd cried tonight, her voice trembling with guilt, so convincing, so fake. I knew she was trying to manipulate me, trying to make me believe she was sorry, but I wasn't stupid. I'd seen enough to know that tonight was just the surface. The real story was buried in those messages, in that betrayal. I sat in silence, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. Then slowly I reached for my phone, the screen glowing in the dark. I needed to think, to plan. I wasn't about to let this slide, not without a cost. I had to do something, something she wouldn't expect, something she'd regret. The first thing I did was go through her messages again, this time more carefully. I looked for anything that could give me leverage, any weak spot I could use to turn this around. I knew I had to act smart, not impulsively. I had to be in control. That's when it hit me. What she didn't know was that I'd been secretly recording our conversations for months. I'd kept a hidden app running, just in case something like this ever happened. And now I had almost a year's worth of her voice, her lies, her fake apologies. A sick smile tugged at my lips as I realized how perfectly this was lining up. I had her dead to rights. I could confront her, show her I knew everything, and then I'd take my revenge. It wouldn't be messy or violent, just precise. Cold, calculated. I got up from bed, my pulse pounding in my ears. I decided I'd play it cool for now. Tomorrow I'd gather all the evidence I needed, her messages, the recordings, everything. I'd make her see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I'd make her understand that I knew what she'd done and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. As I sat back down on the chair in the corner of the room, I clenched my fists again, feeling the sting of betrayal burn deep. I kept telling myself, she's going to regret this. She's going to wish she'd never crossed me. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew one thing. This was no longer just about her cheating. It was about proving that I was the one still in control here, and she was going to pay for what she'd done. I looked at her phone one more time, then turned off the screen. Tomorrow was coming, and I'd be ready. I had a plan in mind, and it was going to be cold, calculated, and final. She'd see that I wasn't the kind of man who got betrayed without a fight. That's when I realized I'd never felt so alive and so furious all at once. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding and my stomach was tied in knots. But I knew I couldn't afford to be weak now. If I wanted justice, or whatever this was, I had to stay sharp. I had to keep my head clear and stick to the plan. First thing, I brewed myself a strong cup of coffee. The smell hit my senses hard, bitter, familiar, grounding. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. All the evidence I'd gathered last night was encrypted, stored, ready to be used. I needed to confront her, but I had to do it carefully. Rushing in would only give her the chance to spin her lies again. I waited for her to wake up. Lisa usually got up early. She liked to start her day with a workout, so I was surprised when she was already in the kitchen pretending to be normal. She looked like she hadn't slept, eyes puffy, hair slightly tousled. She tried to smile at me as she poured herself a glass of water, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She looked at me and said, "Morning, sleep okay?" Like I slept on broken glass, I replied, voice flat, almost cold. I could feel the tension thickening the air. Got a lot to think about. She hesitated, then sat at the table, crossing her arms tightly. "Look, I know I messed up. I was drunk. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. Save it." I cut her off. "I saw the messages, Lisa. I saw everything, the pictures, the words. You think I didn't notice how you're always sneaking your phone away, or how you cried so fake last night? You're a terrible liar." Her face crumpled. Tears started to form again, but this time I didn't care. I'd seen through her act. "You're damn right I'm crying," she snapped. "Because I got caught and I'm sorry. But I love you. You love me," I scoffed, feeling my fists clench again. "That's rich. You love me enough to cheat, to lie, to betray your own family." "I didn't mean for it to go so far," she whispered, voice trembling. It just happened. I was lonely and he, your brother, he made me feel alive again. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't stop myself. I shook my head, feeling bile rising in my throat. You think that's enough? That somehow just saying sorry makes everything okay? No, Lisa. I've got the recordings, the messages. I've got you dead to rights. You're not getting out of this that easy. She looked desperate now, her tears spilling over. Please don't do anything stupid. We can work through this. I don't want to work through this, I said sharply. I want to know why you did it, why you thought you could get away with lying to my face. Because here's the thing, you're not just cheating on me. You're cheating on your vows, on your marriage, on the one person who trusted you with everything. Her shoulders sagged. I was weak. I made a mistake. No, I said coldly, this isn't a mistake, it's a betrayal, and it's going to cost you. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small voice recorder I'd hidden, pressing play. Her words from last night filled the air, her voice trembling, desperate, admitting her affair. I watched her face twist with guilt, and that was the moment I knew I had her. Every lie, every excuse she'd tried to sell was caught on tape. I looked her dead in the eyes. You're leaving today. I want you to pack your bags, and I want you gone. No more excuses, no more pretending. I want you out of my life. She looked stunned, her face pale. You're serious. Dead serious, I confirmed. And don't think for a second this is just about catching you. This is about sending a message. You don't get to betray me, cheat on me, and then come crawling back. I'm done being the fool in this story. She started crying harder now, her shoulders shaking. Please, I'll do anything. Just don't throw me out. I love you. I felt my entire body tense with rage. Love doesn't mean shit when you're cheating behind my back. You want to be with him. Be with him. But I'm not sticking around for the fallout. You're done here. She looked at me with tear-streaked cheeks, pleading, but I made up my mind. This was the moment I'd finally take control. I reached for the keys on the table and slid them across to her, my voice steady but cold. Pack your shit. Now. As she grabbed her purse and hurried out of the room, I felt something cold settle inside me. Relief, maybe, or just the satisfaction of knowing I'd finally ended the lie. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew this was just the beginning. The real revenge was only just starting, and I was going to make sure she'd regret crossing me for good. I watched her disappear into the bedroom, her hurried movements frantic and trembling. The door slammed shut behind her, and a strange silence settled over the apartment. My hands were still trembling from the adrenaline rush, but my mind was clear now. I'd done what I needed to do, no more hiding, no more pretending. That was the first step. The next was to really make her feel the repercussions of her betrayal. I sat down heavily on the couch, trying to breathe, trying to figure out my next move. My mind kept circling back to the recordings I'd made, the messages I'd uncovered. All that evidence was platinum, irrefutable. I felt a strange sense of calm in knowing I had the upper hand. She tried to manipulate me, cry her crocodile tears, but I saw through it. I had everything I needed. I thought about my brother, the bastard. The ones I'd trusted my whole life, and now I knew he'd betrayed me too. That realization made my stomach churn. I needed a plan, a way to make them both regret what they'd done. I wasn't going to just walk away and pretend this never happened. No, I was going to give them a taste of their own medicine. First, I pulled out my phone to gather some intel. I had to be smart. I knew Lisa would try to spin some story or maybe even come back begging. I had to be ready for that. I started by calling a friend of mine, someone I trusted, who knew all about the tech side of things. I explained everything, and he gave me the confirmation I needed. I could use her own devices against her. I knew her passwords. She'd never changed them, not really. I logged into her email, her social media accounts. All the secrets she'd been hiding, I was going to use them. I also set up a few surprises for her, a way to make sure she'd see she wasn't getting away unscathed. I was going to make her feel vulnerable, exposed, and most of all, humiliated. Then I thought about the physical evidence. I had her phone, her messages, the recordings, but I needed something more, something concrete. That's when I remembered her laptop in the bedroom. I knew she'd use it to hide her side of things, so I snuck in while she was packing. I found her email file and I downloaded everything, saving it securely on a USB. She'd never suspect I'd gotten so far ahead. While she was gathering her things, I kept playing the scene over in my head. The fake tears, the desperate plea, she thought she could manipulate her way out of this. Well, not anymore. I was done being the fool. I was going to give her a taste of the chaos she'd unleashed, but I needed to do it carefully, calculated, precise. I remembered a phrase from a movie I watched once: control the narrative. That's what I aimed for now. I'd make her realize that betrayal isn't just about cheating. It's about trust, respect, and the boundaries that everyone has to respect. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some pushover who'd forgive and forget. No, I'd hit her where it counts. Finally, she finished gathering her clothes, her eyes red and swollen, and she handed me the keys. "I'll be out of your hair," she muttered, voice barely above a whisper. But I knew better. I knew this was just the beginning, my opening move. I looked at her coldly, took the keys, and nodded. "Good. I want you gone for good. Don't come back. Not ever." She left quietly, her footsteps echoing down the hall as she disappeared out the door. I stayed behind, staring at the empty apartment, feeling a strange mix of emptiness and vindication. I knew I'd made the right choice. Now, I just needed to finalize everything. I'd call a lawyer, file the papers, and make sure she'd learn what it truly meant to betray someone. As I picked up my phone and started dialing, I realized I'd never felt this clear-headed, this decisive in my life. She'd betrayed me, yes, but I was about to make sure she paid. Not with violence or petty revenge, but with the cold, relentless power of knowing I had control. That's what mattered now. And I'd make sure she understood that she'd crossed a line she'd never come back from. The day after she left, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The apartment was eerily quiet, the silence almost deafening after all the chaos. I knew I had to act fast. I was not going to leave anything to chance. My plan was coming together piece by piece, and every step was calculated. I hadn't just walked away from her. I was about to show her that she'd lost more than just my trust. First, I contacted the lawyer I'd found. It was straightforward, no emotion, just the facts. I laid out what she'd done, showed him all the evidence I'd gathered. We discussed the divorce process, the custody issues, and how to secure my financial interests. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, not just emotionally, but legally as well. When I hung up, I felt a new sense of control. She thought she'd broken me, but I was just getting started. Next, I turned my attention back to her devices. I set up a remote access program on her phone and laptop, something I'd learned about from a friend. It wasn't intrusive. I just wanted to keep tabs on her. If she tried to contact my brother, if she attempted to reach out to anyone from her side, I'd know. It was a safety net. I also uploaded all her messages, recordings, and searches onto a secure server. I wanted to be able to use everything if I needed leverage later. While waiting for her to make any moves, I decided to do something that would really make her regret her choices. I contacted my brother, the one she'd been cheating with. I didn't yell, didn't curse, at least not outwardly. I just told him I knew everything. The silence on the line was deafening. I made it clear I wasn't interested in his excuses. I told him that if he ever contacted her again, I'd make sure he'd lose everything: his job, his reputation, his family. I wanted him to understand that crossing me had consequences. After that, I went online and found a private investigator, someone discreet. I paid them to follow her to see if she'd try to contact anyone else I might have missed. I didn't want to leave any loose ends. I wanted to know her next move before she made it. The investigator confirmed she was trying to reach her friends, trying to spin stories about how she needed space, or it was a mistake. That was typical. I decided I'd give her a little more rope, let her believe she still had some control. But I knew the truth: she was cornered. Throughout the day, I kept replaying everything in my head: her tears, her lies, the betrayal. My stomach felt hollow, my chest tight with a mixture of rage and clarity. I realized that I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was reclaiming my dignity. She thought she could cheat and get away with it, but I was about to make her regret she ever crossed me. I decided to send her a message. Not an angry rant, not an emotional plea, but a simple, cold note. I typed it out carefully, choosing my words. I told her I knew everything, that I had all the evidence, and that I was moving on. I warned her that any attempt to contact me or our family would be met with legal action. I finished with a single line: You wanted to play with fire, don't be surprised when you get burned. Then I hit send. Later that evening, I sat back on the sofa, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. I'd taken everything she threw at me, her lies, her tears, and turned it against her. I was in control now, and she was the one losing. For the first time in days, I felt capable of breathing without the weight of betrayal crushing me. I knew she'd try to come back, try to manipulate me again. But I was ready. I had everything I needed to make sure she understood one thing. Betrayal has a price, and I was about to make her pay it. As the hours passed, I checked my phone repeatedly, waiting for her next move. I knew she'd try to reach out or spin her story to someone else. But I had already set the stage. The game was mine now, and I was about to make her regret ever thinking she could cheat and get away clean. My resolve was firm. I was done being the victim. It was time for her to see what real consequences looked like. That evening, I finished packing her belongings into 2 boxes. Each item she'd left behind felt like a weight lifted from my shoulders. The photos, her clothes, her books, all going into the reject pile. I kept my expression carefully blank, but inside I was boiling with a mixture of satisfaction and cold fury. I knew she was probably panicking, trying to figure out how much I knew, how far I was willing to go. That was exactly what I wanted. I took her keys, the ones she'd handed me that morning, and placed them on the counter. I picked up my phone and dialed the lawyer's number again. "It's time," I said, voice steady. "I want to file for divorce today, no delays. I want her out, and I want all the evidence I've gathered to be used." While waiting for the paperwork to process, I sat at the dining table staring at the evidence I'd collected. The recordings, the messages, the photos, proof of her betrayal, proof she'd been lying to me for months. It was a small victory, one I'd earned through patience and resolve. I knew she'd try to come back, try to manipulate her way out of this mess, but I was already prepared. Then came the knock at the door. I knew it was her. She was trying to come back, probably desperate, maybe even pleading. But I didn't move. I stayed seated, arms crossed, watching her through the peephole. She looked exhausted, her face streaked with tears, eyes pleading, but I was done. I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. I opened the door slowly and she stepped inside, trembling, her voice cracked as she spoke. "Please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for all this to happen. Can we just talk?" I shook my head. "No, not anymore. You had your chance, Lisa. You chose this path. I've made my decision." I paused, then added, "You wanted to betray me. You wanted to hurt me. So I'm giving you what you asked for. You're leaving for good. Don't come back." Her shoulders sagged and she looked defeated. "I love you. I'll do anything to fix this." "I don't want your apologies. I want closure," I said coldly. "Here, your key. Take what's yours and go. Don't contact me again. If I find out you try to reach out, I'll escalate this legally." She hesitated, then slowly turned, grabbing her purse and the few remaining things she'd left. As she reached for the door handle, I handed her a folder with all the evidence, screenshots, recordings, everything I'd kept safe. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw the proof. I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing. "I hope you understand," I said. "You lost someone who loved you, but that's your choice. Take your things and get out of my life." She paused just long enough to give me a defeated, tear-streaked look, then slipped out. I closed the door behind her, sealing the final chapter of what had been a long, painful betrayal. I felt the weight of it all lift off my shoulders, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. This was over. I didn't bother cleaning up right away. I just sat in silence, listening to the quiet, feeling the emptiness settle in. But deep down, I knew I was finally free. The trust was broken beyond repair, and I'd refused to be a victim of her lies any longer. I took a deep breath and looked around the empty apartment. Betrayal is a brutal thing. It stings, it cuts deep. But sometimes it's the wake-up call you need. I learned that the hard way. I learned that honesty and respect, once broken, can't be mended with tears or apologies. They only come back when you stand firm and decide to reclaim what's yours. So I gathered the evidence, filed the papers, and handed her the final blow. And in doing so, I realized something important. The strongest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking away with your dignity intact. Because in the end, the best way to win is simply to walk away, knowing you've taken back control.